I'm Nancy Ann Martin, personal trainer and health coach, and today I thought I'd do a quick interview with Deborah Higginbotham, otherwise known as the Healthy Habit Lady. We have a couple of interesting things and unique things to Deborah to talk about today. Okay, Deborah, so I really want to thank you for letting me sit down and pick your brain today.
Sure.
You have something called selective eating disorder.
I do.
And this is something that you've been really candid about, and I think you've been pretty brave in talking about it. It hasn't been an easy thing, has it?
No.
Well, can you give a brief definition, as brief as you can, about what selective eating disorder is?
Well, it's, like picky eating basically times a million.
Oh.
It's not just picky eating, but where you have severe anxiety surrounding, and it usually is coupled with sensory or texture issues. Also, I had a doctor once tell me I have something called a super taster gene, in that I will notice things and something that somebody else would not. For example, the difference between Wolf chili versus Hormel chili, the cans. I don't know what the difference is between the two, but one of them makes me sick and one of them does not. And that doesn't make sense to the average person. Chili is chili, but to me, one of them makes me sick and one of them does not. So obviously there's something in one that is not in the other, and so that's where the ingredients comes in. It's that ultra sensitivity to texture, taste, and smell. So sometimes even a smell can prevent even getting to the point of tasting. But if the smell is not the hindrance, then sometimes it's a texture or a gag reflex that prevents swallowing. And then if it gets that far to where you've actually tasted it and swallowed, then that extra sensitivity in the stomach, a lot of things do not sit well with me. And so while I may have forced and overcome the anxiety and the texture and the sensory issues, I've done all those battles and I got it actually in me, and the body says, nope, not happening, and it comes right back up.
Oh, so socially this has to really make some anxiety issues in that regard as well, because that would be worrying me all the time.
Yes.
Am I going to be able to keep this down?
Pretty much, because this has been happening since I was a child, a very small child. And so, a lot of people like to blame the parents, and, just to be clear, there was, nothing wrong with my parents. They did the best they could. There was no abuse or force-feeding traumas or anything. They didn't cause me to,
Right.
I have this, I came this way, and they dealt with it the best they could, and just worked around it. Because of this issue, I did not enjoy cooking. I didn't learn to cook, and so I would just gravitate to my safe foods, which usually would be fast food, where I knew I could get it plain, like a plain hamburger, a chicken nugget, a chicken finger, crunchy carbs like potato chips, things of this nature.
Okay.
Just stick to what I knew was safe. My sleepovers, were a very big deal in middle school and high school. I avoided them like the plague because I didn't want any part of that.
Well, bless your
I
heart.
did a few, but only if I was really certain it would be okay.
Oh, wow. Bless your
Camp
heart.
was a nightmare. I just wouldn't eat. I'd go to summer camp and come home and tell
So
my mom I didn't eat for 4 days.
This wasn't a matter of you being stubborn.
No.
This was actually something physically that was going on with your body.
Yeah, the whole concept of people say the kid will eat when they're hungry, that's not true. Not true when you have selective eating disorder. If you're a picky eater, you'll eat when you're hungry, or they'll say, well, just leave it on the table and don't let them have anything else until they eat that, or they'll come back when they're hungry enough. No. No, I won't.
So if it was a battle of wills, you were simply going to win because you knew you
Yeah.
couldn't eat that.
Right.
So I'll sit here for
Right.
the rest of my life if I have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Your parents probably gave up on that fairly quickly.
Yes.
They realized they were getting nowhere. You were going to starve to death. We better give her a potato. So how did you find out that you actually had SED, that there was a name for this thing? I'm imagining that had to be a real relief for you.
research. I found this group on Yahoo called Picky Eating Adults, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay, whatever. And so I joined it, and there was just all of these people there that were describing my life, and I was
Right.
like, whoa, I thought it was a break.
I'm not the only one.
No, wow, we're concept. And so it was really weird, and this one man in particular, I mean, like, he was really describing what I thought was, only me. I thought it was special. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. And so anyway, they had resources, some medical articles and journals, and a few select doctors. There's not a lot of information out there, but anyway, it just kind of started me on this path, and then I went to see a few doctors, and then I had a few doctors say, yeah, super taster gene, selective eating disorder, and now I got a few confirmations along the way. But
So was that a relief for you to find out there was
yeah.
a name? How did you get, because you have lost a tremendous amount of weight. Was it 170 something pounds?
I think it's like 178 now or something.
And you are down, if you don't mind sharing what your current weight is.
Well, I started at 325, and before I came to your house, I was 138. So
that's,
whatever that is.
right, golly, yeah, I think you're at 170, 187 now, somewhere in there. Anyway, I can't do math in public. But anyway.
I lost count, I don't care anymore.
Right. So how did you get to such a large weight with such a limited repertoire of what you could eat?
That is the magical question everybody asks me all the time. How do you get so fat when you don't eat?
Right, exactly.
Are you eating Cheetos in the closet?
Right,
My
exactly.
father asked me that one time. He was like, are you hoarding food? Are you a binge eater? No, I'm not. Because you don't want to cook. There's no pleasure in cooking when you don't want to eat. You're like, I'm not going to cook food for people. Nobody wants to eat what I would make. It would be plain and bland.
Right.
So cooking was not a pleasure for me. So I didn't know how to cook. So if you don't know how to cook, you eat out. Well, and especially in the early years, so most of this weight gain came on in my 20s and early 30s. And so I was newly married, and I did not have children yet, and I was a workaholic. And so, this amazing husband, he married me heavy. I think that was maybe 250 when we got married. So I was working all the time. He didn't really know how to cook either. And so even when we didn't even have enough money to eat out all the time, we would just eat junk, because that's just what you do.
So the
it's
junk,
safe.
it sounds like a lot of the foods that you could tolerate actually were junk food.
Yes, fried, carbs, crunchy, that's kind of what you crave, because they were safe. Potato chips, I would eat a bag of chips for dinner, I cannot tell you how many times, because I would come home late from work, exhausted
And hungry.
and I didn't want to deal with eating or cooking or making anything.
That's not unique to you because of selective eating disorder. There are so many people in the world today that do that for that exact same reason. Yeah. So, okay, so you liked those crunchy foods, but you're not a fan of raw vegetables, which are crunchy.
Right.
Okay. So.
And I did try them.
Right.
Many times. And
Okay.
I would research. I would get into analysis paralysis, and I'm going to change my life. And I would do all of this reading, and I would, and I bet if I could try broccoli with butter, or if I could try it with cheese, because I did like Velveeta.
Or really overcooked.
Or I'm going to try it this way, and I'm going to try it that way. And carrots, I bet I could eat a carrot, and I would just and I would gather up the courage, and I would do this, and I would just and then I would just hurl everywhere.
And nobody likes hurling, which
Right.
would completely feed into the fear.
Right, and so
that-
it would
here
just
we
be
go.
a disaster, and then I would feel so completely defeated and hopeless, and then I wouldn't gather that courage probably for another 6 months.
So it was just an accumulation of continually eating junk for years on end.
And feeling like a failure.
And when you feel like a failure, then you're going to turn to junk food for comfort.
Yes.
And then we've got this big, and that's another thing that's not unique to selective eating disorder. A lot of overweight people eat that way because it's a stress relief. Then somebody stresses them out by saying something negative or their own negative feelings, and then they turn to food, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So when I found you, you were known as the Healthy Habit Lady. I met you on Spark People. I
Yes.
believe that's how we found each other.
Yes.
And how did you arrive at the title of Healthy Habit Lady? What happened to bring you there?
Because, I don't know, I had this epiphany. And well, I couldn't get pregnant. I had been married for 10 years and I couldn't get pregnant. So, and I'm still married to that amazing man. And we've now been married for 22 years. Okay, so a little plug to the husband.
Congratulations.
And so, yeah, I like him. And so we adopted this daughter, and she was a walking, talking person because she was 4.
Right.
I didn't give birth to her, we adopted her out of foster care. And she was just this bundle of energy, and she was petite, and she was like 32 pounds of
Oh.
a force to be reckoned with. And she asked me to swing on the swing with her.
Ooh.
And my big old butt did not fit in that swing, much less pushing her on the thing was like, well, you know, like
It
I
was
felt
killing
like,
you.
you know, it was killing me. And I just had this, you know, epiphany at the park there, like, oh my God, and you know, like I just took on this, you know, enormous responsibility and adopted this child, and I kind of like lived to see her grow up, you know.
Yeah,
you know,
I want to see her.
you know,
Yeah.
and not only do I want to live to see her grow up, I would like to keep up with her,
Yeah.
and I would like to model good habits for her. And she came to me malnourished. She was 32 pounds, but she was 4 years old.
Like, that's tiny.
You know, she was teeny tiny. She was wearing 2T clothes.
Bless her heart.
She had no concept of how to eat. And so it's just everything changed. You know, having a child just changed everything. Like, I mean, me and my husband, I mean, I did not teach him how to eat. I mean, like, we had horrible eating habits together, but he was a grown man. I wasn't worried about, you know, molding his, you know, life, whatever.
Right.
You know, like, you don't tell your husband how to eat really necessarily. He was, whatever. I had
Well,
no-
not if you want him to be happy.
well, I wasn't having moral responsibility for his eating habits, but
Right.
I did feel a moral responsibility for hers.
Right.
And so I didn't like, you know, like people, when you think you're going to die, your life flashes before you. Well, I wasn't dying, but I felt like, you know, when I can't swing on a swing and I can't push her on a swing, like, oh my God, you know, I have failed at this so many times. Like, I'm never going to succeed if I don't do this slowly in the right way. And so your question of how did I come up with a healthy habit, lady, was I'm only going to focus on one thing at a time. And that's all I'm going to worry about. And the very first thing I did was give up Mountain Dew, because I was drinking about 8 bottles of that stuff a day.
Wow.
And I was working then,
That's
I was
a
teaching,
lot
I was
of
drinking
sugar
a lot
and
of Mountain Dew.
caffeine, yeah.
Some of the first pictures of me and Victoria, you'll see this little green bottle in the background, random pictures of me.
They're everywhere.
And that was just the first thing I did. I was like, okay, well, if nothing else, I'm going to give up Mountain Dew. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to do the next thing. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to do the next thing.
And that's something I really advocate is take on what, because people think I need to overhaul my life. Eventually, probably, but right now, just do what you feel like you can manage. Because if you try to take on everything, nobody succeeds at taking on everything and overhauling it at once.
Well, you can't.
Start with one thing you think you can manage. And here's what will happen. When you get to where you have managed that, and that's a habit, and it's under control, then you're going to go naturally, well, I think I could, it'll bleed over into another thing. And then eventually you will have accumulated a whole bunch of really good habits that lead to the better body that you were wanting in the first place.
You walk around the block.
Right.
I just started out walking around the block. I'm going to walk around the block. every
Because
day.
if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. But you know what, you're doing it. Pat yourself on the back. Yeah. And that was one of the things I really liked about you from the beginning is you kind of had a grip on the reality of I can't change it all at one time. And a healthy foundation has to be built before other things can get stacked on top and we can turn into something really exceptional here. So
And you know what happened after I adopted that girl and lost about 85 pounds?
you got pregnant.
Yup.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and again. So now I have her, who is now 18, and 3 boys.
Yeah. So obviously.
Everybody thinks that I got pregnant and had all these boys because we adopted her, but it wasn't so much that we adopted her, it was that...
You straightened your health out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how you can, yeah. Well, good, and congratulations on all the kids. I know
Yeah.
there's probably days when you doubt whether that's
Yeah.
overall they're a blessing.
So yeah,
I
I'm
know you
45 with a 6-year-old, but that's okay.
Well, I think that's kind of cool, actually.
I like it.
Yeah.
It keeps me going.
Okay, now one last question. I know, it was about a year ago, wasn't it? You hit a stall.
I did.
And you were, I thought you were going to tear your hair out of your head.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because you were really frustrated. And I know a lot of people hit plateaus and they can't get past the plateau. So tell me what happened to you, because You finally did, and all of a sudden you were losing weight like it was going. It's like your body was going, "Thank you," and throwing the weight off. So tell me what happened to get you past that stall. This is interesting.
I found the
think
right
this is
doctor.
Interesting, yeah.
And my moral of the story for that is if your doctor isn't listening to you, find a new doctor. Because it was medical. You know, I was doing my part, but my body wasn't cooperating, and it was a thyroid issue, but it wasn't only that. I had way too much testosterone, and so my hormones were all jacked up, and so my testosterone was like through the roof, and so they actually put me on metformin, which was odd because I'm not diabetic, you know, and so all my numbers are coming back. I mean, you remember me posting, I was like 200, 205, and I was like, what is happening here? You know? And it's like, my cholesterol is good, my blood pressure is good, like,
Yeah, all your
blood sugar
numbers
is
were
good.
completely within normal parameters.
Everybody,
yeah.
my thyroid was testing normal. But so they wouldn't put me on thyroid medication. But then the more research that I was doing was saying, but my symptoms are telling me I have a thyroid problem. And so I was like, I need a new doctor to look at the bigger picture. And so it was, yes, I do have a thyroid problem that's kind of compounded with a testosterone problem. But then I also found out that I have a genetic mutation, MTHFR, I don't know, a bunch of letters. And with that, there is a tendency to have a buildup of fluid on the heart, which could potentially be problematic.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And so he put me on a med that is actually a diuretic. It makes me pee all the time, but that's
Use the
okay.
bathroom frequently.
So this combination of cocktail meds, and people will say, are you on weight loss drugs? No, but I am on meds.
Well, you're on things that are regulating you to
for thyroid
be like the
and
rest
my
of
hormones,
the world, right?
And so I'm on methylfolate, which is for my genetic mutation, which basically puts my body in harmony. It puts things the way it's supposed to be, so that if I do what I'm supposed to do to put my body in harmony, it all works together.
And so then the weight just kind of, and the other thing I know you said was you had to eat enough.
Yes, I wasn't.
You had to take in enough calories. And I beat people up about this all the time because it drives me crazy. They can't figure out why they're eating 1,100 calories a day and not losing weight. And I've had people argue, it doesn't make sense. I burn lower, I shouldn't be. Well, really, your body lowers its output of calories, its metabolic rate. That's what, to match what you are taking in because it knows you aren't going to give it enough. So as a survival tactic, it just puts the brakes on all sorts of things, even the calorie output of things like your liver and your kidneys and that kind of thing, and it slows you down to meet that. But when you eat enough, it's almost like the body sort of relaxes, and then it starts dropping. So is that what happened with you too?
My doctor kept telling me, eat more, and I was like, you're killing me. And I was like, don't you understand? I don't like to eat. It stresses me out. And he's like, I don't care.
And you trusted him at this point because of what had happened with he was getting you on the right track.
He's very candid. He's hilarious. He's this little guy from Guatemala, and he's just funny. But yeah, he calls me babe. He's just a funny guy. He's like, babe, you gotta eat.
So how soon after you started eating more, and were you tracking? I guess that's the first.
I was then. I'm not now because now it's just kind of.
You know what to do. So, but how soon after you started eating more did you start losing weight?
Quickly.
Yeah, I remember it was almost immediate.
Yeah.
And you were posting like one week I'm 178, the next week I'm 176, and you were like, boom, boom, boom. It was amazing, and I was really happy for you because you had struggled for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, well I think we're going to wrap this up. This will be long enough. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me.
Well, thank you for letting me invade your house.
Well, we love the invasion, so it works out. Thank you so much for joining us and watching the interview today. If you want to check out Deborah's blog, we'll have a link to that after this, as well as my things. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day.